We begin with our breaking news, and that is Russia's defense ministry has vowed to shoot down any perceived threat in Syria. It follows a wave of claims in the foreign press that the White House is considering direct airstrikes on Syrian army positions. Let's now discuss this with RT's Daniel Hawkins, who joins me live from central Moscow. So, Daniel, tell us a bit more about this latest development.
It's quite a worrying and a serious development, Marina, I have to say. It follows a marked change in attitude from the Washington administration. John Kerry himself was actually in support of limited strikes against Assad back in 2013. He then switched to a more diplomatic outlook, and now it seems there has been yet another change of course. Washington, according to media sources at least, plans to hit Assad forces with strikes on the Syrian Air Force's airfields with cruise missiles and other long-range weapons. Now, this has understandably left the Russian Ministry of Defense quite concerned. They have personnel at the Khmeimim Air Base, the Tartus Naval Base, and indeed throughout Syria. Now, they've deployed a S-400 missile defense system. This is a defensive system designed to shoot down aerial targets such as cruise ballistic missiles and also airplanes and helicopters. Russia, of course, sees a grave threat to its personnel in these latest plans to target Assad's forces. And the Russian Ministry of Defense certainly didn't beat about the bush in warning of the consequences of such plans. Let's take a listen.
I would like to remind the American strategists that the air cover of the Russian bases in Khmeimim and Tartus is provided by the S-400 and S-300 anti-aircraft weapons systems, the strike radius of which may be a surprise to any unidentified flying objects. I should really acknowledge that the Russian anti-aircraft defenses won't likely have time to figure out through a direct line where the weapon's going or who it belongs to.
Well, this worrying development has taken place over the last 2 weeks following the collapse and then suspension of the bilateral talks on Syria between Russia and Washington. The French foreign minister, as we heard earlier, is in talks currently with the Russian foreign minister and will travel to Washington tomorrow to talk to his American counterpart. So it's hoped that not all hope is lost for some sort of de-escalation and dialogue here after what is a pretty worrying development in Syria.
Certainly, Daniel. We'll watching developments there. Thanks so much for bringing us up to speed on this story. Daniel Hawkins there. Well, a little earlier, the White House said it was well aware of any attacks on President Assad's forces would bring Russia and the U.S. closer to conflict.
There's a risk associated with taking strikes at regime targets. That risk includes attacking a regime that does continue to maintain a robust air defense system. It also edges U.S. and Russian military forces closer to confrontation. It doesn't serve anybody's interest.